Has Todd Boehly come out to support Pochettino? And are we planning to sign Martinez from Aston Villa? Today, my friends, we have more big stories to dissect and get into, so I hope you guys enjoy today's video. I'm not going to waste any more time with the intro. You know what to do. Hit that like button. Press the bell notification button to stay up to date to all uploads. And most importantly, sit back, relax, and let's dissect today's latest stories. Now, let's start off by discussing what Todd Boehly had to say around Pochettino and Chelsea Football Club. To start with the first quote, with Todd Boehly giving his opinion on our recent improvements. As he said, we've seen in the last 2.5 games in that second half for Aston Villa and Tottenham and West Ham where we played beautiful football. It was so fluid. It was exactly the way we drew it up when we came out of the back, built up and moved up the pitch. It was very organised, and the number of shots we had in those 2.5 games, you could really start to see what we were working on coming together. And I think this is a very fair admission from Todd Boehly. And listen, we've all seen this improvement in the team. It's something that we've all been hoping and waiting to see for a very long time. That bit of structure, that bit of understanding behind our ways of playing. As we learned throughout last week, Pochettino had been working on the system behind the scenes over the past recent months, and I guess due to the pressure that he's feeling around his job, he decided to introduce this in the second half against Aston Villa. And is it any surprise that we instantly clicked into place? I don't think that you have to see us play for maybe like 2-3 months straight playing the style of football to know that something now is coming from this, because you know that second half tactical work from Pochettino was incredibly similar to that same energy and vibe I felt when I saw Antonio Conte introducing a 3-4-3 in the second half against Arsenal. I was at that game. The way we played a completely different game second half, and made me recontextualize and reconsider how I thought we were progressing under Conte at the time. And I think Pochettino's had his own Conte moment with us, even though it's come stupidly late during the season. But as Boehly himself said, he was seeing how the energy from, media, commentators, they're clearly seeing that something has changed right now. And it's good that Todd Boehly is acknowledging the improvements. It's good that he is following us and paying great attention. That's what I learned. And the fact that he mentioned that with the way we're playing, it's exactly what we drew up. It does reveal that, number one, this was the main vision that they had when it came to building the squad, hiring Pochettino to play this type of football. And I think it also reveals that Boehly and the owners have known that this was being worked upon behind the scenes, because you can't just introduce this way of playing just like that without there being real serious work happening behind the scenes. But to move on, we also learned some insights from Todd Boehly. We learned that he had like a great relationship with Koulibaly, and in relation to being asked why he decided to buy Chelsea Football Club and why he wanted to come to the Premier League, he said it's the biggest league in the world. It has some of the highest earning potentials, viewership numbers, etc, etc. And Koulibaly said to him, the difference between being in Serie A and playing in the Premier League is that in Serie A I get to think and then I run, but in the Premier League I have to run whilst I think, and I'm still adjusting to that. And I do think that at times, in my opinion, I think the tempo of the Premier League can be too fast for the sake of it. I want to see more quality on ball, but it does make things quite exciting at times. But to move on, we also learned how Todd Boehly is feeling quite hopeful around the future, not only with our football club, but also the Premier League. He mentioned that the sport now is growing in popularity in America, especially with a younger viewership. And as Boehly said, essentially when kids are waking up on a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, this is the prime time for Premier League games to be on. And over the past 16 months, there have been 6 games that have broken Premier League viewing records. So it does go to show that the younger audience especially is really taking towards their football. And I think this is another reason why Todd Boehly saw that there's a growing market here. And this is why it makes even more sense to tap into signing a Premier League club. He gave the example of Cole Palmer, and as he said, he thinks that Cole Palmer can become a household name. He's been a phenomenon for us, And so we're thinking hard about how we continue to expand our brand in the United States. That's ultimately a priority as well, because that's another market. I think this explains why we will continue to be playing our pre-seasons in the States to try and grow that audience even more. But outside of just America, Todd Boehly gave some insight behind maybe why we've constructed the squad the way we have, by mentioning that we can also tap into the global viewership from South America. If you're signing Enzo Fernandez's, if you're signing Brazilian talents, if you're signing some of Ecuador's best talents as well, it makes a lot of sense that you could be getting extra viewership from those nations. And then in the long run, maybe kids grow up thinking Chelsea Football Club is a club I want to sign for. That's a big club I want to play for. I'm seeing so many familiar names from people from our own country. I think this is exactly why we're able to tap up some of the great African talents that are available in the market, and I think it should be no different with South America, a market where we haven't always traditionally been able to get the very best from there. But in Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Kendry Páez, and hopefully Estevan Willian, I'm loving the direction, and I'm liking that there is like a grand scheme behind how we're moving as well too. But to end with things, Todd Boehly spoke about how he sees Chelsea growing in the future and the ambitions for our football club. As he said, in order to compete, you have to have growing revenue. And I think a brand like Chelsea really allows for that. Growing that brand, especially globally, is predicated on winning. I think that winning is at the top of the things that's most important. When you're attracting a new fan, the key is to have something that's really aspirational. And I just think that this is a very long interview, but these were some of like the key points that came out from that. But it's really painting this vision behind the long-term play at hands in which Clearlake Capital are seeing the future with our football club. We can't forget that they can't take out any money. They can't take out dividends for up to 10 years. So there's even more emphasis for our new owners to make it work, to make it happen. I'm hoping that soon we can start translating, getting success in the league and on the field now. It's reassuring at least that I guess we can still claim a European spot. We have been at Wembley twice this season. Maybe these are like the smallest positives you can take. And the main positive being that we have a young squad with great talent that can only get better and better as time goes on. And if this grand vision and scheme works how they're hoping it does, we could be a household name hopefully within 5 years' time. So my friends, that's everything Todd Boehly had to say. Share your thoughts and opinions on that. And now let's discuss a pretty interesting report surrounding goalkeeper news. It does seem like we are planning on targeting a goalkeeper this summer, and today reports suggest that we are turning towards Emiliano Martinez of Aston Villa. Now, last summer Pochettino was hoping to make Martinez his main man, but courtesy of reports coming out from TBR, RF Football, they report that at the moment Aston Villa may need to sell to adhere to profit and sustainability rules. Now, Aston Villa have recorded pre-tax losses of 119.6 million for the 22-23 season. Technically, they've exceeded the max amount limit, which is 105 million over 3 years. Villa argue though that they've acted within the rules and feel like there's deductibles from their losses. And that's because they have invested in building a new academy. They've invested in infrastructure, charitable foundations, and the women's team as well too. They opened up their new academy, Brookvale Academy in Birmingham, but regardless, reports suggest that Aston Villa may be forced to have to sell a player to comply with these rules, and Emiliano Martinez is seen as the option, and that's because he's 31 and he currently has 2 years left on his existing deal. Now, the report mentions that we are also paying attention towards Pickford and Ramsdale, and in my opinion, I think that's simply because we want to boost our homegrown quota, because we have to comply by those rules. It's as simple as that. And with Emiliano Martinez, he signed for Arsenal as a 17-year-old and he had been with them for over 10 years, which meant that he qualified for homegrown status through citizenship, and you get that after spending 5 years in the country. Remember those reports when he was linked with taking over the England international spot? That's because he qualified through citizenship. So I could see the benefit of targeting an Emiliano Martinez. He has the Premier League experience, and you might argue that he's one of the best goalkeepers currently in the league. Now, I think it'll be hard to target him because if Villa most likely do get Champions League football for next season, that's his real opportunity now to play in that competition. Will he want to leave that to sign for us? Who knows? But at the same time, we have a great project. Pochettino, a lot of Spanish-speaking players in the squads, and he gets to come and stay and live in London too. Now, I'm going to discuss this game a little bit because I think there's some unspoken parts of Martinez's game that doesn't get discussed enough, and you could argue that he's one of the best sweeper keepers in Europe right now. Now, there's one amazing stat around Martinez, and that's the fact that he ranks the highest in the league for time spent on the ball. He's that composed that he will release the ball only when he is triggered with a press. And the main benefit behind having a goalkeeper this composed, this comfortable at playing outside of his box, leaving his box, is that you are relieving pressure from your teammates. If they need to regroup defensively, you pass it back to your goalkeeper who's good enough on the ball to maintain possession, and it allows your team to just catch their breath a little bit. I think it's no surprise why Martinez ranks the highest by a distance compared to many outfield players, which is the absolute crazy thing. And I think to myself, we could benefit from a skill set like this because Martinez is a very good passer. He can kickstart play. He's dominant aerially with his claims, his catches from set pieces, and he's one of those goalkeepers that has personality. He gets in opponents' heads. He knows how to, skewer these situations to his favor. And I think a lot of times the best goalkeepers have that type of crazy personality to their game. So I think that he could be quite popular with the squad. And ultimately, it does seem like we are maybe ready to cash in maybe on a Robert Sanchez. I can't imagine that it's going to be Petrovic who goes. I think Petrovic has had a very solid debut season since being introduced during the halfway point of the season. Yes, he can improve on the ball by a distance, but he's made some top saves. He's not looked out of place in this league. And I do think there's a lot more to come from him. But I do think with the signing of Martinez, he's the experienced guy. Petrovic still has time to grow. And then we can still assess how our young American goalkeeper and Gabriel Slonina progresses, because he had a very good loan spell in Belgium this season. So how do you guys feel about Emi Martinez? I'm not going to lie, I'm not opposed to this. I don't think it'll cost too much money. And if a deal can be done somehow, I'd probably take it, to be honest, because I've always kind of had the soft spot towards him. So my friends, that's the Emi Martinez news out the way. And to end things, we discussed Matt Law's reports surrounding Mauricio Pochettino. As we know, at the end of the season, he is set to be reviewed for his progress. Now, as we're learning, the review won't just be based on results in the league. It will include things like tactics, how he works with the squad, how favourable he is with everyone, within the setup as well, plus a host of other intangibles that will go into it. But it's believed that Pochettino will hold discussions alongside our sporting directors, Egbali, Feliciano, and Todd Boehly at the end of the season. Now, based on these, really supportive comments that Boehly made late last night, is there an argument that he could be the guy that's secretly gunning for Pochettino to remain and keep his job? We have seen some slow improvements. You're looking at our recent form, and also little details like our discipline. At one point this season, if you had told me that players were personally placing personal bets on bookings this season, I wouldn't believe you, because we were getting yellow cards for fun. We are close to beating Leeds' record of 101 yellow cards, and the fact that for the past few months we haven't been getting cheap bookings tells you a lot about the improvements and discipline levels showed within the squads. We know that Nico Jackson and Moises Caicedo were especially close to picking up, suspensions, and they never clocked them whatsoever. And again, I think all these little intangibles do add up. Now, as I said, I've been yo-yoing throughout the season surrounding how I see Pochettino. Again, that cup final defeats Liverpool, that done it for me. I was thinking, how the hell have we lost a game in this manner against Liverpool's B team? There's no excuses for that. But, I think the main excuse, and not even an excuse, I think the main reasoning behind why Poch will feel that this season has kind of slowed down a little bit is due to the ridiculous amount of injuries that he's had to contend with. It makes it hard to work on the system, work on the tactics. Think about this. Cucurella has been out at times this season, so if he wanted to introduce this new 3-2-2-3 system, where was the time for that? You're seeing how we have injuries in midfield, especially up front, in defence. All these injuries that has forced Pochettino to have to go back to the drawing boards, whilst also working on improving, the identity of the team, working on improving how they play together, how the team think, how they form relationships, that discipline, all these intangibles that go into creating a strong team. It's not just playing pretty football and thinking that's all that. Myself, and again, I'm holding my hands up. I like to learn. I like to learn from my mistakes. I'm not an expert in the game. I don't have coaching qualifications, so I don't try to talk as if I know everything. But again, I'm always learning something that I wasn't considering. And this is why, I'm going to have an open mind around the difficulties that could be faced on any manager that takes over our club at this point in time. Makes you think that even if Pochettino was to somehow, miss out on us getting Europa League football, let's say even by a point, should that be enough to necessarily sack him and dismiss all the, impressive signs of life that could be for next season? Now, I'm hoping that Man United vs Newcastle is set to be a draw. If that's a draw and we win the remaining 3 games this season, hopefully we can do that. But it won't be easy. Bournemouth are in form. Obviously, Brighton, who knows what happens with them. And Nottingham Forest are fighting to stay up in the league. So there are going to be 3 important games that we have to be ready for. But with how we're playing, with this system and the confidence in the players, you can only hope for better things right now. And you know what? Let's hope and pray that this team can finally achieve an expectation from all of us, and that is at least securing Europa League football for next season, because I think there's a lot of financial pressure for us to secure European football because we need to get sponsors now, and I think that's why we have none at this point in time. So my friends, that's all the latest stories that's dropped today. Share your thoughts and opinions. How do you feel about Pochettino, Emi Martinez and Todd Boehly's comments? And on that note, I'm Nini FC, this is BlueLionsTV. I'll see you guys later with some more videos.